Hey everyone, here's how to create a person shadow for your effects in Spark AR. Let's start by adding in a new rectangle. Rename it to person, and on these boxes, click Fill Width and Fill Height. Create a new material for it by clicking this plus button, and double-click on the material to open up its properties. Let's rename it to Person Matte and change the shader type to Flat. Since we're making a shadow of the user, we need two person segmentation texture, which basically detects where the person is from the rest of the camera input and masks it. To add this, click on the camera over here, and on the right, click on the plus sign for camera texture extraction. Also below, add two person segmentation textures. Double click and let's rename this to the first person segmentation, and the second one for the person segmentation shadow. Now going back to the person material, assign the texture to the camera, and then check the alpha and assign that to the first person segmentation. And now the person is masked out. Next, we need to create a new rectangle or just duplicate this one and rename it to shadow. Make sure you bring it above the person rectangle so it renders behind it. On its properties, change the material by creating a new one. Double-click here and rename to Shadow Matte. And again, change the shader type to Flat. Let's change the color of it to gray by bringing the brightness down to 20%. For the texture, we're going to need to add it to the patch editor, so just click on this little arrow icon for it to show up. We also need to add a blur patch, so click on the plus icon here and search AR library. Search for the blur and import it. Now we can start assembling by dragging it to the patch editor as well as the second person segmentation texture. Connect it together so the RGBA to texture and blur to shadow. Now on the second segmentation properties, we can bring the mask size up to get a larger outline. I think 7.5 looks good. On the blur patch, let's change the blur amount to 1 to add more softness to the edges. Back to the shadow material, let's adjust the opacity and bring it down to 45% so it'll look more realistic. One thing you can do is to change the position of the shadow. So go to the shadow rectangle and on the viewport, drag it a little bit diagonally to the left and stretch it down to make sure the bottom edge is covered. One last fun addition you can include is if you want to add other things on the shadow, like for example, devil horns or an angel halo. I've already created the PNG images you can download for free so you can follow along. The link will be in the description. And now what we can do is just import it by dragging it in our assets. Next, we'll add in a face tracker so that it can rotate with the face. Add a plane to the face tracker and rename it to devil horns. As for the layers, let's create a new layer for the face tracker with the horns and include the person rectangle to this layer as well. Now since they're both in the same layer, we want to render the horns first so it shows behind the person, so we have to move it above the canvas. Back to the horns, let's create a new material for it, rename it to Devil Horns Matte, and change it to Flat. I'm adding in the horns image asset to the texture section. You want to also make sure on advanced render options that use depth test and dry to depth buffer is unchecked. Change the color until it fits well and make sure that you test how it looks on your phone, since there could be differences from how it looks on the preview. Final steps is just to place it accordingly above the shadow head, so let's move it up and a little bit back on the Z-axis. We also need to scale it as well. Your transformations may be different from mine, and that's okay, just change it until it fits well. And there you have it. Feel free to use the angel halo image as well if you would like. If you have any questions or feedbacks, comment down below, and if you found this helpful, make sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe for more Spark AR tutorials. Thanks for watching, see you next time.